1, what did I say, 2 and 4? Alright, so from last class we talked about how to find slope from a graph and slope from 2 points. This one you can really choose because it gives you the graph so you can count, but it also gives you the points so you could do the formula. So how you did that is up to you. If you use the graph, does not matter where you started. Let's say I start here, then I'm going to count how many units down. Remember, you don't have to show these, but if it helps you visualize, do that. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. And then to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would give us -6 over 4, but we have to simplify. So in your calculator, if you're not sure how to do that,
There we go.
if you go into alpha, y equals, so alpha, the green button, y equals at top, it will give you a fraction bar. If you hit 1 or enter, then you can put in -6 and 4, and you should get -3 over 2. So always simplify if possible. Anyone have questions on that one? Anyone do it using the formula? Okay, so I can do that so we can show that as well. Right, so we have our 2 points. We can label them x1, y1, x2, y2. And then remember that your formula, I'll write it up here, is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus y1. I'll just kind of interrupt. And then put all of these in here. -7 minus -1 over 2 minus -2. Make sure you put it in exactly as is. Simplify across. -7 would become +1. And then 2, this would become +2. And then simplify. Questions on that first one? Number 2, this gave you a vertical line. So if you were remembering your WebBooks, vertical lines have undefined slope, so this should be an undefined slope. You could also think we have a rise, we're going up and down, but we don't have a run. So we would be going up and down, but not left and right. And we cannot divide by 0 because we would get an error, which would give us undefined. Questions on that one? And then 4 was the last one. So if you didn't do the formula for number 1, you should have done it for number 4. Label these x1, y1, x2, y2, so that we have -1 minus 2 over 3 minus 5. Subtract across, so we have -3 over -2. In this case, the numbers can't be simplified, but the negatives can. So both negatives would divide, cancel each other out, just make this a positive. 3 over. Hopefully some of this is refreshing in our memories from last class. Do we have any questions on how to find slope from a graph or from 2 points? If you don't already, get out your notes from last class. Like the second part of the slope notes. Harder, less hard? I don't know. Well, let's read it. So we need to know a couple other things about slope, so we talked about how to find it. And now we'll talk about other things and how we find it. My bad, this page. I skipped a bit. So we need to talk about slope-intercept form first. That was my bad. I went too far. Slope-intercept form, does anyone know what that is first? Y equals mx plus b. This is the equation of a line where it's written in slope-intercept form. It shows you what your m and your b are. So m we talked about last class was the slope. B is the y-intercept. Hence the name slope-intercept form. Okay, so not only do you have to be able to find slope, but you also have to recognize it in different forms. So this part is more so writing, but we're still going to do it here. That'll be good practice. So here we're given slope, we're given y-intercept. We have to write it back in this format. How would we do that? Or number one. Here.
Y is 2 equals mx plus negative 1.
Okay, so what's your m? And then the slope, but minus 1. So the y stays the same, equal stays the same. Whatever your m is, you put that in place. Leave the x the same, and then whatever the y-intercept is, you just put that. But you also have to be able to do the opposite. If you are given this and not this, you would have to say 2 is your slope, and negative 1 is your y-intercept, and vice versa. Okay, so let's try 2. Can we write that? X. So don't forget your x in this process. Otherwise, it's not the complete slope-intercept form. A couple others. Number 4. How would you write that one? And you can write this one 2 different ways. So I'll write it the way you said, or you can write it without the negative 1, just write the negative. Either or is fine. Okay. What about 5? Here.
Y equals 1/4 x plus 0.
So in this case, you can put the plus 0 or you can leave it off. It does not matter. So either or, it does not matter. Questions on how we write slope-intercept form / know which one is slope and which one is y-intercept. Go to the next page. We're going to write this standard form, but then we're going to do the practice when we come back in. Alright, at the top, some of your equations are going to be written in this form and not in our slope-intercept form. And we're going to have to convert it and change it. So we'll do that after lunch. They'll be written in this form. AX plus BY equals C. Where A and B are going to be random numbers. X and Y are going to be the variables that we need in our slope-intercept form. C is also going to be a random number. We're going to rearrange this somehow to get it back in slope-intercept form. So we'll do that after lunch. So I started to explain this, that some of the equations you're going to see are going to be in this format, this standard form. Our goal is to rearrange this so that it looks back, it looks like our slope-intercept form that we were just talking about. So some of these will be like one step, some of these will have multiple. Once you get into the multiple, the steps will be the same. Alright, so here, this is in our ax plus by equals c format, where we have a 1 in front of y. Right? And we want to solve this for y. So it's going to be very similar to the literal equations we were just doing in the last unit. If we want to get y by itself, we need to get rid of 2x. How would we do that?
Divide by 2.
If the 2 was by the y, then dividing would make sense. But here, we're just adding. So how would we undo that? Subtract. I need you guys to be on time. So we're going to subtract that to both sides. But just like with our literal equations, we're not combining these. They're not like terms. We're just rearranging. There's nothing else in front of y. So technically this is already solved for y. We just want it in slope-intercept form. So we're going to take these and flip them. When you flip them, make sure they have the same signs. So this should still be negative, this should still be positive. Now this is in slope form. These are basically the same equations, just in different formats. Before we continue, does anyone have questions on what we just did? So that was like a basic one where it was just one, it's technically 2 steps. I'll show you that moving forward, we can do this when we move things, but we'll see that in a second. So let's try number 2. Same process. We're trying to get y by itself. What would we do first? Subtract the 4x to the other side. And I'm going to rewrite. And at the same time I rewrite, I'm going to make sure my x comes first. So 5y equals negative 4x minus 30 instead of negative 30 minus 4x. That's one less step we have to do later. Now, if you would rather write it as is and then switch it later, that is also fine. But now we have to get y by itself still. How do we get rid of the 5? Then we would do it. And here, just like before, if any of these, back up. No matter if they can be simplified or not, divide it separately to everything. And then divide. Or simplify. This number that you're dividing in front of x, leave that as a fraction. Unless it can be simplified further. And then this one would just be negative 6. We have now converted this to slope-intercept form or solved it for y. Okay. If I asked you what's the slope of this, what would you tell me? Negative 4 over 5. So you have to be able to recognize your slope from these as well. Do you have any questions so far? For the most part, the process is going to be the same. The only time it's different is if you have a negative. So let's try 3. What's the first step? Subtract x. There we go. I'm going to bring down the negative 3y. I'm going to switch these two. So it's negative x plus 12. So we don't have to worry about that later. And then divide by negative 3. So when we divide here, all of our signs are going to change. what would our equation be? Yeah, so I'm going to write this two different ways. Bottom one was a little small. I wrote the first one big. So you can either write it as is. You see the x on top. I added in the 1 to show you that this is where this 1/3 came from. There is an invisible 1 in front. So we could move the x to the side to make that 1/3, or you can make it x over 3. Either or does not matter. It's the same thing. If you have questions about this process, how we're doing these answers, anything so far? If you wrote something like this, your slope would still be 1/3. So don't let that part confuse you. Let's do one more together, and then I'll have you try a couple. 5. What would our first step be? So try 4x to both sides. Now here, you can put the +0 or you can leave it off. It does not matter. And then our last step. Divide by, so not y, but what's the number in front? -1. You can put that -1 in if it helps. So you can either leave this like this, y equals 4x, or you can put the +0, either or does not matter. I want you to try 7 and 8. Try those two. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. I'll be checking as I walk around. We'll come back and talk about those, and then you'll have time to practice after that. So try 7 and 8. Oh, I wouldn't know that.
I think she's like 14. Yo, but my parents were beating her, bro. Like, when did your mom have her?
Like, I'm the first one.
How's your mom? How's your mom?
Like 38.
So 24?
She's like 21.
Oh, you're 18. That's what I thought you were like 14.
Great.
She was like 21.
Alright, my mom had, like, my oldest brother had, like, 14 to go.
Yo, how old are you?
Alright, let me get your attention for 2 seconds.
Over.
Double check your answers. I checked most of yours. Most of you got these. Some of you just needed to simplify, or there was this mistake that I just want to explain to everyone in case I didn't. Here, we were subtracting every single problem because these were positive. But if this is negative, you have to do the opposite. So whatever that first one is, always do the opposite. But then the rest should be the same. Make sure you are simplifying everything, that you bring down your x's. Do you have any questions about that? If you would like to practice more on this, there is some more at the back of the notes. In this section, it asks you to find the slope. Some of them are in slope-intercept form. You just have to know what the slope is. Some of them are in standard form. You have to solve for it. So you can do that. You have 2 delta math to do today. One on what we did last class, one on what we just did. So if you haven't done either, you should probably do that. Work on that, and then at the same time, if you wanted to retake, you can come see me, and I'll give you your test so you can work on that process.